everyone, and welcome to another episode of Leadership Satsang. Why we call this Satsang is because it is in being a good company. When you are in a good company, you call it as Satsang. And since you all are leaders and we talk about leadership, it becomes a Leadership Satsang. Also because Satsang का idea है कुछ अच्छी बातें करना, कुछ अच्छा सीखना और अच्छा इंसान बनना, isn't it? And I think when you try to become a better leader, you're doing just that. You're trying to be there for people you care for. And in the process, you work on yourself. And when you work on your leadership abilities, you automatically become a much better person as well. So Leadership Satsang is something that just fits it right. And those who join us for these live sessions are the ones who really make it a satsang. It's not one person who can do that. So thank you so much for joining me live. Let's have a hi from people in the chat box. Would love to know how many of you have been able to join us live. This is a slot that I want you to get used to. You know, in the beginning of the year, we create habits. So I would like this to be one habit that you can incorporate. And trust me, it'll be a great use of your time. And you will definitely take something back from these satsang sessions, that I promise. But let's make this into a habit, like a permanent slot in your calendar. 7:30 to 8 every Tuesday. Let's meet here and let us see how we can become better leaders so that we can improve the world around us, so that we can become a better individual as well. Okay, so let's get to what's happening in the world around right now. In my world, things are not so good because both my twinnies are unwell. And so right now I'm at home, and that's why I'm making do with, different light conditions and background, etc. The weather is such, sab jagah weather fluctuation hai, and that has to catch, all of us at one point or another. So that's where I am playing a mother as well as an entrepreneur and a leadership coach to you all right now. So it's fun, too much to deal with, but that's what life is. So how's it going with you? Are you all feeling okay? Is everyone okay at home? Give me a yes or all good in the chat box. Would love to know that you guys are safe and sound and you're keeping up with this crazy weather. In Mumbai, I've never seen it becoming this cold. Okay, so today in the morning, I actually saw mist in the air, which I've never seen in Mumbai. I've been here for over a decade. So it's really, really getting cold. And some of you are in the north, I know, and that's unimaginably cold. As much as I'm a Delhiite, I don't think I can deal with a 3 or a 1.3 degrees anymore. So thank God for small mercies. Let's stay alive. Super Megha, good to know, all good. Raj is all good. And if you guys are good, then I'm super good. And what is even better is for us to prepare ourselves for the times which might not look that good. There's been a lot of talk happening around recession. And so I thought we should spend some time understanding what's really going on. Now, what's this big deal? What's really happening? Because as they say, incomplete information is more dangerous than no information at all. When we know little about something, we fill the gaps with a lot of assumptions. And assumption is assume, and assume is ask you and me, which means we make an ass of ourselves, or we become silly and stupid about how we make decisions when we don't have complete knowledge. As much as there is a lot to learn about recession, my intention is to give you some level of understanding which is close to what's the reality right now. And by the end of it, I want to leave you with a few things that you need to do as a leader, and a few things that you need to do for yourself to prepare yourself, your own strategy that you can use to deal with these tough times. Okay, so before I go ahead, let me know from you guys, what is your understanding of recession? And this is not going to be any class on economics. I'm not an economics student, first of all. As much as I come from a finance background, I think we all need to have a little bit of finance background. We need to understand some basic stuff about what's happening in microeconomics and macroeconomics. So to that extent, let's have a layman discussion on what's really happening in the world, what will be the impact India might face, and most importantly, what is the impact that you should be ready for? Okay, so what does recession mean to you guys? Anybody? Rishabh, shout out to you. Hiren, Himanshu, so good to see you here. Bharat, Megha, what is your understanding of recession? What is recession? Let's see. Some of you are probably Googling right now to come up with a smart one-liner. And I don't want that really. I just want your understanding. So you're saying profitability of business is low, and that is recession. Okay. Mary says, hi, Mary. Good to see you here. What else? What is your understanding of recession, Mary, Himanshu, Bharat? Loss of jobs. Okay. Loss of jobs could be a function of recession, right? But what is recession really? Loss of jobs happen because of recession. But what does recession mean? One more attempt. Let's see if anyone can come up. And I'm not looking for a right answer. I'm just trying to understand how well are you navigating through what's happening. Downward spiral in overall economy. Rajneesh Kumar, you are very, very close to the right understanding of recession. Loss of jobs and slow growth is what happens due to recession. So yes, Rajneesh, as you said, recession is when the economic growth gets hampered and it slows down. Yeah, it could be low demand. It could also be broken supply chain, or what we call as a negative supply shocks. And it could also be a function of the overall economic growth going down and the cost of production going up. And that is what causes lack of balance, which is what we call as recession. Now, what are some of the causes? Like, how does recession really happen? Of course, we've heard of that Great Depression back then, and now we are saying that a lot of economists are saying that this recession that we're looking at in 2023 is going to be worse than the Great Depression that we've lived through. So, what do you think are some of the reasons that are causing this recession, which will lead to depression if you're not prepared? But what's causing recession? Shrinking of economy. Yeah. Okay. So what's causing this shrink? Why is it happening? What are some of the key factors you think which are contributing towards recession? Broken supply chain. Absolutely, Bharat. You nailed it. Yes. Yes. Any other factor? There are many factors, guys. There's so much happening. Trust me, anything that becomes world news will have a direct impact on world economy. And any impact on world economy will have proportionate impact on the country's economy, which pretty much gets divided into regions. Mostly developed regions will have a different set of challenges. Developing regions and countries will have another set of challenges. So let me open up my mind map so that we open our mind to what is really happening. Is the situation as bad as it appears to be, or are we preparing for the worst and not understanding that, what is the exact real scenario? Is it going to be as bad as I'm imagining, or am I underestimating the situation? Now, as much as I've listed down 6 broad causes of recession, there are many more causes that lead to recession. Now, of course, we know that COVID-19 has hit us real bad. And because of that, like somebody said, there has been blockage of global supply chain and labor supply. Both have been reduced and blocked. And that has caused a serious and direct impact on our ability to manufacture, and hence the cost of production has gone up. Second, of course, most talked about and another grave impact on world economy has been Russian invasion of Ukraine. What has that done? That has increased the energy prices, oil and natural gas, food prices, fertilizers, and some industrial metal. All of this has an impact on overall world economy. Everything becomes more expensive. Another factor is zero tolerance policy that China rolled out towards COVID. What did that do? Further supply bottleneck, right? It became even more difficult. Now we know that countries like China and India provide major workforce to a lot of developed countries. And that is why it's called as offshoring. But now what's happening because of the zero tolerance policy is that a lot of hiring or manufacturing has now shifted to countries like US and UK. And that's called as French shoring. And that, of course, has increased the cost of production. Now, aging population also has an impact. Now, it's not a major cause of recession, but it is definitely adding to it. Why? Because as population ages, consumption will increase and production will reduce, right? Because their ability to produce is that much lower and consumption is that much higher. They require to consume more. So aging population is a concern, especially in some of the specific countries, developed countries. Then add to it climate change, add to it cyber warfare, and the need to protect your computer and your servers with multiple firewalls, etc., etc. All of that adds to the cost, which takes away the bottom line. And when there are less profitable ventures, then the cost cutting happens. So it's a cycle. It's a cycle. If you don't produce much, you don't consume much. If you don't consume much, then you will not be able to consume what is being produced. So the supply and demand need to talk to each other. The moment one goes higher than the other is when we face recession. So what is all of this to do with an individual like you and me? What's happening and what can happen? Now, of course, we've seen this happening already. We've seen how AI is taking over so many jobs, much more than what happened about, last year, Jan, or just a little before that. As much as we've been talking about technology advancement, ye ho raha hai, wo ho raha hai, AI is happening, blockchain, blah, blah. Now we've seen it taking over jobs that we did not assume, we did not see coming, like content writing being taken over by ChatGPT, right? The latest AI platform that's being created, and it's being improved. It's already the beta version is fantastic. You should check it out. But there is a lot of work happening on it already, and that will take away a lot of skilled workforce. So that's one concern at an individual level that I see coming, hitting me. It's hit me already. The second, of course, is talks of layoffs happening everywhere. So from the Wall Street Journal to any publication that you pick, you will see crazy number of layoffs happening. I just thought of picking up a few to help us sensitize ourselves to how grave the situation is. These are the numbers of 2023. Today is 17th of Jan, and we are already looking at 1,000 plus fired by Amazon of some 1 lakh that they employed in India just recently. 500 or 20% of their workforce in shared chat has been laid off. 3% of around 80 people in Dunzo have been asked to leave. Ola, cash-free payments have also fired 280 employees respectively. 3,000 bankers globally were laid off by Goldman Sachs. Of course, we've got numbers from Salesforce, Vimeo, Verily. A lot of companies, overall 91 tech firms have laid off 24,151 employees globally in just 2023 in the last 2 weeks. Now that looks like a matter of concern. Would you agree? Let's just see a yes or a maybe or a no in the chat box. How do you see the situation with the numbers floating around? And these are not just numbers, right? These are people. These are people who have probably joined just 3 months before. In fact, that's a story of an Amazon employee. In 3 months, he was asked to leave. There have been people who've been crying on the floor, not being able to deal with, being asked to go. You don't imagine something like this happening to you. But if it can happen to somebody, it can happen to me too. And that's when I need to prepare myself for what is it that I can do? What's within my circle of influence? Now, I can't really do much about, the oil and gas pricing. I probably can't do much about the bottleneck that's been created because of some laws or policies that a country decides to go ahead with. But I can definitely do a few things more consciously, more deliberately in my world, within my circle of influence. And that's where I want to take your attention. And before I go there, let me tell you this. Recession is not an event. It's a process. Business runs on a cycle. There are highs and there are lows. It's not the first time recession has hit us. It's not the last, right? So if we look at a situation as an event, we might get sucked into the whole story of it. Oh God, what will happen to me? What are the causes this time? Blah, blah, blah. Most of your concerns will have nothing to do with your circle of influence. You can't do anything about it, but it'll come into your conversations, and from there into your thoughts, and from there into your sleep, and then you know what happens thereafter. So I want you to first look at this as a process. There are highs when business was going well. Now is a time when it's probably going to be a little slow. That's all that's going to happen. And like I said, it will not happen for the last time. It's just happening one more time. What is it that I can do to prepare myself to get along with this process? That's the intention here, right? So we're not going to get paranoid. We're not going to overanalyze the situation. We're only going to see what's possible for me to do. As simple as that. I'm going to pick up the comment here and shares here. He says, I agree. But in the manufacturing sector and energy sector, for my business, it's a great opportunity to source best manpower because my industry payroll isn't among top 3 to 5 expenses. Not just that. You know what happens when layoffs happen? The companies at an organizational level, I'm saying, we become so insecure because people who are ready to leave first when the ship catches fire are the best people because there are more opportunities for them. And when you start losing your best, everything gets impacted. And that's when retention needs to be looked at very, very closely. So absolutely, a loss for somebody can be a gain for somebody else. So an IT sector going down could mean manufacturing going up, or any other sector in a better position than it was before. Having said that, it's not as if we will be completely impact prone, right? So hence the relevance of this discussion. So let me take you back to what is it that we need to do as a leader. And then, like I said, I also want to share with you a plan that you can make for yourself. All right. So here are the things that I would like you to look at. The 3 C's, it always really comes back to the 3 C's. And this time we need to understand what to do differently about these 3 C's. The first is clarity. Clarity is the only way to deal with uncertainty. Now, right now, there is a lot of uncertainty. Let me stop here and ask you guys, how are you feeling? How uncertain or different are you feeling? How is your environment right now? How negative or positive is the environment? What do you think? When you scan around, how do you feel? What is the mood? What is the energy around you? What is your energy and your mood when you hear these kind of news? When you talk about recession, when you hear about it, and every single channel is talking about it today, how is it affecting your mood? And what do you see around? How are people feeling about it? Quick comments? Okay. No news is good news. Raj says that ignorance is bliss. I don't want to hear anything bad, so I don't listen to news at all. But I wouldn't agree with that strategy, my friend. It's like being an ostrich and putting your head in the sand and then assuming that the world is good, right? Sometimes it works, most of the times it doesn't. It's good to be aware, but that doesn't mean that you get rattled, right? When you have a plan, you never fail. So we're going to create a plan here today. All right, Hiren, you say that it's a great time as a supply chain getting disturbed, we can enter new markets. Yeah, that's really catching on to the silver lining. And that's a great approach to have. And I think this is what needs to trickle down in the organization as well with leaders like you in the system, right? So when I talk about clarity, it's important to ensure that clarity is presented in twofold manner, right? There is clarity in terms of your long-term plan. What is that bigger picture? Long-term, what is it that you wish to achieve, right? And your short-term plan as well. What is this year looking like? And what are some of the realistic targets or expectations that we can have from each other? This needs to go together. Now, like I said, recession is a part of the process. And because we understand it as process, we know that this alone cannot affect my bigger picture, which is what I want to achieve 5 years from now, unless I see that becoming irrelevant. Then, of course, I go back to the drawing board. But usually, when you create a vision, which is your long-term plan, the vision is always backed by intention, right? So the vision that my company, SBY Academy, has is to make every organization we serve a great place to work. Now, today we think that these are the skills missing in the leaders out there. And this is what will help them to become a great place to work. Tomorrow, some of these skills might be obsolete, irrelevant, and we might look at a different set of skills altogether. But the vision is still the same, to make every organization we serve a great place to work. So the vision is not getting disturbed with some of the events that are happening currently in my present environment, right? So what's that vision, that long-term picture, that big picture, and what's my short-term plan? Both need to be clarified to the last level of the organization. And at a personal level, you need to make sure that you're answering these three questions for people, even if they're not asked directly. What is expected of me? That's a question that will come to everybody's mind in uncertain times, right? What is expected of me? What is expected to happen, where I want you to be real and not sugarcoat and tell me all is well, right? All is well. And what can be their contribution, as in team's contribution, individuals' contribution? How can they make themselves relevant? Now, everybody might not share Hiren's optimism, even in his own team. Possible? Absolutely possible, right? But with someone like him in the system, if he is able to reach out to people who report into him or who are working closely with him, and he's able to answer these questions, it creates a lot more certainty and clarity in the system, and that brings in engagement, and that brings in motivation. And that is what we need to do in the current times. The second C is not just communication, but over communication. These are the times when we need to communicate a little more than usual. And what are we communicating? We need to show them the bigger picture. We need to share with them what is the plan. And we also need to help them understand what should be their priority. Because priorities need to be revisited, especially when there is uncertainty, when there are doubts, when fear is seeping in. You need to put the tasks on the table and together get people's buy-in to say, this is what our priorities look like right now, aligned to the plan that we have, aligned to the big picture that we all should see together. That's the communication required. And over communication, not just with your peers, but again to the last level of your organization. So we need to do that in a very planned and structured way with the intention to ensure that people feel safe. The third C is connection. Really, really important to get down at a personal level. And for that, you've got to build in these three things. I'm sure you have all these three skills to some extent, but you need to brush it up and elevate it to your next level. The ability to be a coach. These are the times when we don't want to tell people, and people don't want you to tell them either. These are the times when we want to ask questions, when we want to know how are they feeling, what's going on in their mind, what are some of the questions that they might have. And that's a coach's approach, right? Asking more than telling. The second skill is listening a lot more and a lot more actively than ever before. And third is, most important in my view, is to do this proactively. There's no point reacting to a situation when people have already started dipping onto their productivity and their performance, right? Before that happens is when you proactively reach out as a coach, ask what's going on, and be a listener, be there to know what their fears are, what their doubts are, and see to what extent you can address them with honesty, right? Show them the real picture, but in a way that it's a little more palatable, right? It should not be so in the face that I don't have the maturity to deal with it. Okay, so I'm going to take a quick pause and see what is it that you intend to bring into your leadership right away. What out of these three C's should you be more conscious of? Let's quickly have a sharing on that. You see, that is the best part and sometimes the toughest part about being a leader. It just never, the preparation and the work never stops. You've got to be on your toes all the time so that you can be a step ahead, so that you can ensure that you've navigated through the unknown, and then you realize how and where is it safe for your team to follow. And hence these leadership satsangs, right? It's just to keep you ahead of the game. It's not as if you won't have a job tomorrow. And we might have it even till end of this year or much longer. But if that one day it seeps into my organization, what can I do with my people? These lessons go handy even then. Today, the reasons could be X and tomorrow it could be Y. But what I need to do is a set of things that I've shared with you. And once you learn that, then crisis management is another strength that you can claim to have. So listening and being proactive, having a proactive plan, Mary, thank you for sharing. Absolutely. I think once we bring that in, proactiveness, very, very important, then we don't need to deal with the damages caused, right? Before the damage happens, we know how to deal with it. And now comes your personal plan. Let me break a news to you guys. No matter how good you think you are with your job, what an organization understands and must understand is that nobody is indispensable. Would you agree? Give me a yes in the chat box. You could be a star performer and yet you could be given a pink slip, and sometimes we might wonder why, but sometimes the decisions have criteria behind them that we don't understand, which means we need to know that nobody is a showstopper, not even me, not even the rock star that I am or I think I am in the organization. I could be asked to leave, and that should be okay, because before that happens, I know how to create a strategy for myself, right? So I call this as a 3P strategy, and I want to share with you what this strategy is so that you start working on it right away. And that doesn't really mean that already some layoffs are happening in your organization and hence you should do this. I would recommend considering these 3Ps right away. There is merit in looking at what they are and working towards them one step at a time, right? Like they say, Rome was not built in a day. So the first P is to understand and assess the prospects. What are some of the opportunities out there? For that, you need to put yourself out there, which means you need to be more on LinkedIn or such platforms. You need to connect more with people. And when you are connecting with people, please ensure that your intention is to give. You're not kind of just creating that base so that one day you can come asking for help. If you haven't helped people enough, you can forget about getting any help from them. And I think that's a fair deal, right? So it's a good time to look out for what's happening, which all organizations are growing, even in the space of, another sector. How is it looking like, which takes you to the next P, which is the pivots that you might have to consider, right? You might pivot into a startup space. You might pivot into a different role altogether, a different organization or a different industry altogether. How ready are you to pivot? Which means, have you been able to widen your canvas? Are you consciously learning about things outside of your domain? Because if you're not, then you should have as of yesterday. You need to really start learning about things which you're not an expert at, which you don't utilize in your current job, because you don't know how relevant your job is going to be tomorrow, right? So look at possible pivots, look at some of the prospects that are there already, and also spend time understanding the passions that you have. What drives you? What is it that you do? And when you do that, you lose track of time. Time just flies. What is that thing for you? What's that interest that you have, right? And how can you develop that further? Not necessarily to make it a profession, let me tell you, but these are the things from where we derive our energy. And that energy is needed to deal with tough times, isn't it? So the energy doesn't always just come from the food we eat, right? And the optimism that we feed our mind, our mind is filled with optimism because of whatever sources that you pick. And you think that you inject optimism and you eat right and you exercise and that takes care of energy. Energy comes from happy moments. We get those happy moments with our kids sometimes. We get those happy moments sketching, drawing, painting, cooking, driving, cycling, running, whatever those passions could be. It's very important to take a pause and really think through some of those passions that you have, which are probably lost or long forgotten. Can you go back to them and make time for them? Because you will need this energy to fill you up and to fill in those gaps where you will not be as clear as you like to be all the time. And that's when you would need to utilize this energy. So look out for prospects. Make sure that you're ready to pivot if you need to. and give a little more importance to the passion that you have or you had and you've forgotten. Let's just go back to that because we'll really need it. So with that, I sum up today's satsang. Thank you so much, Bharat, Raj, Rajneesh, Swati, Gopal. Thank you for confirming, with my views. And let me share with you all that a lot of extensive research goes behind sharing, what I share in these leadership satsang, because I take the responsibility to show you a direction, and I do want to ensure that this is the right direction for you and it'll take you to your next level. So all that's left is now for you to walk the path and keep yourself recession ready. We never know what future might look like, but the only thing that we can do is do a few things differently today in our present. So I hope this was a useful session. Thank you so much for joining in. Would love to know what are your thoughts on being recession ready. How do you think we should lead in such times? Please do add your comments on LinkedIn when we put it out as a post. Would love to know. And also feel free to share what are some of the topics or questions that you would like me to pick up in our subsequent episodes together every Tuesday at 7:30. Thanks once again, everyone who joined in live. Means a lot. This is Yukti Kapoor Medirata signing off for now. I'll see you next week. Same place, same time. God bless you all. Thank you.